And our mics are live, and we are live and in living color. All right.
Yep.
All right. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Geekodrome. This week on Geekodrome, let me try that again, because I didn't introduce myself and I skipped that part. All right. This is what happens when I stop working with a script. I got to fix that. Okay.
We're calling on the ring, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Geekodrome. I am your host, Jon, and this week joining me on Geekodrome is Mike Kingston, the writer of Headlocked comic. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How's everything going?
Good. You're sounding a little echoey. I hope everybody's enjoying it anyway. We'll enjoy this anyway, but we'll deal with it as it is. Good. You're sounding a little echoey. I hope it. There we go. So, you write pretty much the premier comic book about wrestling. So, which did you get into first, wrestling or comics? We'll take it all the way back to start.
I think I was exposed to comics first. I don't know if I was necessarily like super into comics before I was super into wrestling. Probably right about the same time though. I had comics for a long time, like just stuff you get off at the drugstore, off a spinner rack. I'm dating myself because you can't more, but I had a set of like old made playing cards that were like Marvel characters, and like if you got Doctor Doom, like that was the old made. So like I was familiar with Marvel characters and whatnot. And then I remember going drugstore and seeing Spider-Man, Captain America fighting on the cover of the Spider-Man comic. And in my head, I'm like, these guys are good guys. Why are they fighting? And so I made my mom buy me that comic, and I still have it. Like I just saw it today. It's all beat to hell. It's in my basement.
Do you know which comic it was?
I want to say it's 127, maybe. Amazing Spider-Man. It's got Captain America and Spider-Man fighting on an Electro Shadow background.
Oh, nice.
And that was the first comic I bought. And then eventually, like, I would get comics at the drugstore. And eventually my mom put me in my first like actual comic store. And then I got super into X-Men. Like that was my thing. But I was probably falling in love with wrestling right around the same time. Because that was the first Saturday's event. Was the thing that first exposure to wrestling. Which is interesting because they don't really do that anymore. And I guess it's different now. Network. I don't know if Network TV has the same cachet that it used to. But
yeah, I mean, I grew up watching it on Saturday mornings as well, and it's kind of a loss that there's not that communal experience to watching it Saturday mornings for kids anymore.
Yeah, I always thought. I don't know. I mean, I kind of thought that's maybe what they should have done with the women's show was have a separate women's show, have it on Saturday morning. I mean, all those. There's so many characters that are just they're very straightforward, simple, and well executed. Like the Sasha, Bailey, and Charlotte, whatever. And I mean, there was a period of time when like young girls were in Japan, young girls made them like they treated them like rock stars, and it almost seems like it would have been a worthwhile attempt to try to replicate that in here doing something that was I don't know just different. You have get some female writers and try to make something just aimed at younger girls, and maybe it's an easier style. And people don't have to take the punishment they take on Ron.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, there's definitely that opening. Girls were definitely into wrestling in the 80s when it was the rock and wrestling era, because you had Cyndi Lauper and pulling in that whole Wendy Richter thing. And then, like, a lot of girls were into it then, and then it kind of faded away, and it became, like, an all-male thing for, like, decades.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great that women's wrestling has really pushed forward in the modern era.
I like it a lot. I think it's funny. You know who and everybody sort of talks about the women's revolution or evolution, whatever. And the people who don't get the credit that I think that they deserve are actually the Bella twins. Like when I go to Comic Cons, like I see more Bella cosplay than any other female wrestler. I see some Becky Lynch, I see a fair amount of Sasha, some Bayley, but always a lot of Bella cosplay. And I find that interesting just because traditionally people, smart marks or whatever, aren't fans of their work rate or whatever. But there was something that they did that connected with young girls. I see a ton of young girls dressed like Bella twins.
Do you think the
reality show really interesting?
Oh, sorry. Do you think the reality show helped with that?
Absolutely. There's so many people who got into wrestling. I mean, not just girls, but adults that found their way into wrestling or were last wrestling fans and like total Bella got back into it. I think on some level, it's almost a big missed opportunity for WWE not tied into their programming anymore. And I know it's tricky because of the production schedules, but like I feel like there's an episode of where like Dolph Ziggler was trying to hit on Nikki Bella when she was John Cena. And I mean, that to me would lead right into a match. Like they should have had John Raw that week.
Yeah, but the problem is that they filmed the show like 6 months in advance.
Oh no, understood. That's what I'm saying. The production schedules make it difficult, but it would have been smart knowing that was coming up and trying to build it. Like when that episode's going to air, maybe have that match and have it related to that or something. It's tricky to pull off, but it would have been. I think it would have been nice because there are some people who just watch the reality shows and don't watch the shows. So I do think that there's avenue for growth there. But it is a super underrated gateway drug into wrestling.
Oh, I know. There's the Bravo programming is huge right now. And although I don't watch it, I know people who do. And I know people who will watch, like Total Divas, but won't watch wrestling for whatever reason. Yeah.
No, I mean, there's also a lot of programming. So I mean, some people obviously have the stomach to devote themselves to 30 hours of wrestling a week or whatever. But I think 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, and everything else. If you watch anything else beyond WWE, it's just a large time commitment to be wrestling these days.
Oh, of course, and don't forget 205 Live, NXT. Yep. The monthly pay-per-views,
NXT UK.
Yeah, it all adds up. As much as I want to watch it all, I try to limit myself to Raw, but not always successful, because then I want to see, especially now that they just had the brand shake-up, like a bunch of wrestlers I like are now on SmackDown, so now I'm watching SmackDown, too.
It is interesting. I do think it fragments the audience in some fashion, because you really can't watch it all. You can. But I can't. I have a full-time job, and my comics are also a full-time job. So I work full-time jobs, so I try to pick and choose what I can. I love independent wrestling too. So I want to watch Progress, and I want to watch Beyond Wrestling. Like they just debuted a thing called Uncharted, and they're showing matches every Wednesday night online streaming. Just great indie matches, and I want to watch that. And at some point you have to sort of pick and choose what's going to be the highest entertainment value for the week.
Oh yeah. Plus, there's people who watch New Japan and they watch, IGW and whatever. And there's so many great wrestlers out there who aren't necessarily in the big leagues, and it's tough to watch them all.
It definitely is. It's an interesting time. It's an interesting time to be a wrestling fan. You almost wonder though. I worry sometimes about oversaturation, and you get to the point athletically where people have done everything that they can do, and you know what I mean. Like I think we're right now, and for the better, we care about these guys' health. They're not just stunt dummies. Like I think that used to be the sort of perception. Like hate each other, hit each other in the head, set them on fire. Like people were mad when Sandman made rubber barbed wire in WCW. They're like, come on, man. Like the guy's got to cut himself every match, but I think that there are limits to what people can do. I mean, every once in a while I see Christian does something that stuff that no one can do. But
he's insane. I love
him. He really is.
Yeah, well, there's also like that blurred line. Like you can watch any TV show and people understand it's actors, but for some reason, because I guess because of kayfabe for decades, people believe wrestling is real to a degree. And yeah,
it is real to a degree.
Well, yeah, I mean, the punishment they put their bodies through is definitely real. And I give them all the credit in the world for doing it. But it's just people kind of really blur the line between, like, who they are on stage and who they are off stage.
Well, I think it's hard too if you have your name. Like, if you work under your real name. Like, Bret Hart could only be Bret Hart. Like, he's Bret Hart today. He was Bret Hart as a wrestler. Like, he's always going to be Bret Hart. Whereas a guy, no one thinks Samuel Jackson is Nick Fury because he has the opportunity to be a couple of different people. And especially now in the so-called reality era, where so many guys work under their real names, like that's a tough gig. I mean, the fact that a lot of guys have their real names as their Twitter name, which is odd to me. Like, I almost feel like guys should have like a character Twitter and a real life Twitter and have them separate.
Yeah, well, Ambrose just this week, since he's left the WWE, has changed his name to Moxley, which I guess is his real name.
No, that was his name before he went to WWE. It was Jon Moxley.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe his name is his last name is good. I don't know what his first name is, but he was Jon Moxley before. So he'll be interesting. He's a guy that I'm interested to see because he's a different cat. He's a real kind of a loner. Marches to the beat of his own drum, but the people who know him and know his mind really respect his mind, and I think he'll be interesting to see what he does. I think he'll do different stuff. I mean, we're a lot of times, a lot of times it feels like it's guys playing a wrestler. I mean, and obviously, but you want guys to be a wrestler or be something different, or hit that level of immersion. Sometimes when you see a guy doing outwardly heel stuff, you're like, oh, great heel. But then sometimes those guys can get you, in deeper to where you get mad. And I think that's the real. To me, that's the real art. But I think when you're doing something different, like that's the way to sort of suck people in.
Oh yeah, and it's those interesting characters that attract people.
Absolutely. It's weird now, because wrestlers are so handcuffed to a certain extent. Like, you can't do a lot of things that you used to do before. I mean, half of the 80s characters couldn't exist in this environment, but there's no such handcuffs on other forms of entertainment. So, like, I mean, when I was a kid, professional wrestlers were the craziest characters on TV, but now, I mean, if you put I don't know. If you put Sami Zayn in the middle of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, like he's gonna disappear. I mean, like reality TV now is such a train wreck, and there's so many big, bright characters all over entertainment. Like, and wrestlers are so subdued and sort of forced to be subdued in a way. Like, it's a tricky, it's a real tricky thing now.
Oh yeah, because all those reality TV types are supposed to be like over the top and just pull no punches, allegedly. Even though we all
that's what wrestling. I mean, that's what wrestling was. You know what I mean? Like Roddy Piper or whatever, those big, vibrant personalities. And now, WWE's, obsessed with their advertisers. And rightfully so. I get it. Business. You gotta make money. People get touchy. So to a certain extent, their product feels more restrained now than it's ever been. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have like, the characters aren't as crazy. They're not as over the top as they used to be, and I think that there's that hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that appealed to me when I got into wrestling in the '80s was that it was a living comic book. You had these over-the-top characters who were very brightly colored and battling it out for good and evil in the ring, and it was just like, a living comic book, and that was like an amazing thing to see at the time. Now it's because we're in that 24-hour cycle and everybody's got to be over the top and colorful and doing that. It's sort of like they're competing with what they built in a way.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody's adopted the pro wrestling model. I mean, Donald Trump has adopted the pro wrestling model. I mean, everybody's pro wrestling now. Pro wrestling used to just be pro wrestling, but the longer you stay in it, the longer you're sort of in it and you're around it, you kind of see like everything's pro wrestling. I mean, Dana White everything Dana White's done is right out of the Vince McMahon playbook, and everything Donald Trump did is right out of the Vince McMahon playbook, and it's interesting just to see it, sort of adopted, while wrestling is sort of, shrunk a little bit, and you know what I mean? Like it's a weird dynamic now to think that like, oh yeah, the president of the United States is more over the top than anybody on Monday Night.
Yeah, well, he is WWE Hall of Famer.
He is absolutely. Yeah.
So he did hope maybe he took a lesson or two, in his couple of appearances over the years.
Sure.
But yeah, it's all about just everybody learn to you cut the promo that gets the most attention and riles the fans up the most, and that's what makes the money. Stone Cold cut the amazing promos. He was top of the world, and he owned wrestling and even mass media. Then The Rock did the same thing, and everybody saw the two of them and went, "I could do that." And that's really what the media became.
And I think that's unfortunate. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think in any form of entertainment, something becomes popular and everybody sort of apes it. And that, I think, is a big thing that's for everybody to try to compete with WWE. You know what I mean? Everybody's tried to do what WWE's done. TNA, at one point had sort of a different product. They had, the six-sided ring, and they were X Division stuff, and Joe, and whatever. And they brought in Hogan, and went to four sides, and did WWE Light. And at that point, you're never going to be number one if you do what number one's doing. Like, you got to do something different and get people. And everybody's so afraid of risk. And you see it in all forms of entertainment. You see it in comics. You see it on television. Something's popular. Game of Thrones hits, and then everybody's doing fantasy medieval stuff and whatever. And everybody's trying to do a shared universe now because Marvel knocked it out of the park. But obviously, not all people have the same success.
Well, and yeah, we used to discuss on the show that Marvel earned that. Like, they didn't just jump into the shared universe. They did Iron Man. They did Captain America. They saw people responding, and then slowly built to the Avengers, which was, from comic book terms, your annual. So that it wasn't the center of the universe. It was this is what we're building up to.
Sure.
As opposed to, here's Dark Universe, here's the DC Universe, here's Universe. But they didn't earn it. So
Agreed. No, absolutely. But that's what you get. You get allocations of what people are doing, and it always has to be somebody's doing something different to sort of push any kind of art form in another direction, or even just do something interesting. So.
Oh yeah, and once people see something interesting was done, it's like, oh, we can do that, and we go from there.
Absolutely.
I saw an interesting quote on Twitter today, and I'm probably going to mangle it, but it was something like, when a movie costs $200 million, it's safer than when it costs almost nothing.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, $200 million a lot of money to get back. But that's they say like everything in movies now, like they eliminated it as a sort of mid-range thing where you're either going to get the giant blockbuster or you're going to get like the art house, no budget movie or whatever. Everything in between is kind of gone now. Because people don't want to do that sort of in between thing. So it's definitely a different time in entertainment. There's so much stuff. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I mean, you can't watch all this stuff. I mean, Netflix pumps out series, HBO's got series, everybody's got the original content.
And everybody's trying to build their own online network to go with it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know it's funny that, it'd be nice for a consumer if people could just work together, but everybody wants everybody thinks that they deserve a bigger share of the pie. So
I know. And then I'm subscribing to Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, DC Universe, HBO,
I can make a wrestling analogy, the first WrestleCon. Everybody was under one roof. Ring of Honor, High Spots, whatever, Evolve. Everybody was all on one roof, and the vendors, everything was great. And then the next year, Evolve split off, Ring of Honor split off, and then next year, last year, GCW had their own thing. Like now it's just all over the place. And as a fan, you have to pay entry to all these different things, and it's tricky, you know. I mean, we're from as a fan, the first WrestleCon was great because you just paid the one ticket to go in, and then you had access to everything. Now you have to pay all these different things. I used to be able to watch Marvel stuff on Netflix, and now it's going to be on Disney Plus and whatnot. So it's definitely we're definitely headed to that sort of weird a la carte era where people are just going to sort of pick and choose and not have one cable company that has 400 channels.
Yeah, I mean, well, even WrestleMania weekend was here in I almost said here in New York, but it was in New Jersey about a month ago, and which meant there was a shit ton of stuff going on around here between New York and New Jersey, and it was just so overwhelming. I didn't know what to go to, and I honestly skipped most of it because of it. I ended up going to the Supercard and to SmackDown because a friend of mine had an extra ticket. But other than that, it was just like, what do I do?
I mean, this was the most overwhelming I think it's ever been. I mean, last year it was WrestleCon was in one spot, and like the Evolve stuff was in one spot. Ring of Honor had one match in one place, but like I don't know. I mean, anytime it's in New York or Florida, because there's just so many wrestlers that live there and so many people. Like, and plus people have these ideas, I mean, Casanova is running these, no rope or no ring deathmatch things, that are sort of bordering, performance art more than wrestling. But you don't even need a ring anymore. You can just show up at a bar and fight in a bar, and people might take to that. And I mean, that's something that's far different than anybody else is doing. But you could throw that up in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't announced, and all of a sudden it was announced. Like, hey, we're having three no ring deathmatch shows, in Brooklyn, and people went to that, and like drag shows popped up, and all kinds of stuff. It's great. I mean, it's great to see. After so many years of WWE sort of dominating the aesthetic, it's great to see people pushing wrestling and media into all these different areas. Like I think it's awesome just because I've always wanted to see all kinds of wrestling. So it's you hate to see it when it's sort of the same thing over and over again. It's overproduced.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that there is this diversity again because, in the 90s, essentially you had the big three where it was ECW, WCW, WWE, and each one gave you something different. And now those choices are kind of popping up again.
Sure. I mean, early 2000s was just WWE. I mean, after they bought WCW and ECW got out of business, Ring of Honor really sort of catch on until 2004. I mean, they started sooner than that. I think 2004 was when they started to pick up a little steam. But even before that, I mean, from 2000 to 2004, 2005, I mean, it was Cena and Orton every week.
Yeah, I kind of tuned out of wrestling for a while at that point because it was just, a homogenized product. I could tell you exactly all the beats, how they were going to happen each week. Here's the commercial break. Here's what's going to happen now. Here's when the promo's going to be. It's like, it's not fun if it's predictable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, back to the original thing. We obviously both have this love of wrestling and comics. So what inspired you to bring them together for Headlocked?
So I was a wrestling fan and a comic fan forever, and I felt like we never made good wrestling comics. Like WWE would license comics out, and you can kind of tell that like they were just kind of hacked out to get a buck, and they weren't very interesting. They were super cheesy, and not in an endearing way.
No. Yes, I remember some of these.
Yeah, and you just couldn't get anything good. Like, it became apparent at some point nobody was going to make the wrestling comic that I wanted to read. So I decided to do it myself, and it's been a journey. I didn't understand a lot about the comic book industry, and you have to sort of, it's not intuitive, it's not what you think it is. So I read comics my whole life, but I never understood how it works. So, I put together a business plan, I cut scripts, and I went around to publishers, and they were like, "Oh, where's your art?" And I'm like, well, I'm a writer in a comic book company. Why would you ask me where my art is? And they're like, well, that's how it works. We have to get an artist. It's still to this day baffles me, but whatever. And then so I find an artist, come back like, we don't like this artist, find a different artist. Pretty much I found an artist that people liked, and I was able to start producing the books. And I mean, basically, you don't do anything in comics until you sort of basically finance your own comic. It's you know, no one starts out working at Marvel unless they're super famous doing something else. You know what I mean? Like if Mark Ruffalo wants to write a comic book, oh, I want to write a comic book, or whatever. If you're on a Heroes or some, whatever. But like if you're off the street, you got to prove yourself. You got to prove yourself by producing your own comic book, which.
Yeah.
If you're lucky and have a great artist friend that'll work with you for free, that's great. But if you're a writer, then you pretty much have to pay someone to do art and self-publish and then get someone to appreciate that. So it's a weird business.
Yeah. I was talking to an artist this weekend at a comic convention up here, and he was telling me how, back in the 80s, even early 90s, you kind of could just walk in and they give you a tryout. It's like, all right, well, here's an 8-page story. Let's see what you can do with it. And now it's like there's so much demand that you're pretty much competing with the entire world. And
sure, people are selling less than they used to, and it's comics are suffering a little bit. They're kind of where wrestling is right now too, where they're sort of dominated by a sort of singular aesthetic, which is superheroes, and then other there's more diversity now than there's ever been. It's sort of re-educating the audience because we cater to this one particular audience for so long. And then trying to let other people know, like, hey, we're doing this other stuff too. And I mean, it always makes me laugh. Like, one of the things I say to people, like, if you say comic book movie, you automatically think superhero movie. Like, you don't think of History of Violence or Logan Perdition, Ghost World, or any of that stuff. You might think of Walking Dead.
Even The Crow, people kind of don't think it's superhero-y, so they don't associate it with comics.
And that's funny because I mean, we don't want we're talking comic movies. We don't want to Green Lantern, but we don't want Green Lantern.
Oh God, I still have nightmares about watching that one.
I was kind of hoping Ryan Reynolds went back in the timeline there, the race for my mind too. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, why can't we get credit for History of Violence? That movie was decent. Let's get credit for that. You guys can Green.
Yeah, and there's quite a few movies like that because it was DC's Caliber Press, where I want to say a good number of them became became movies at the time. I'm gonna blank on what they were, but I know that History of Violence was one of them. But there were a couple that were, all of those were like crime books and whatever, and they tried to do stuff with them, not necessarily successfully, but.
And that's what I've always tried to do with what I'm doing. I'm writing a straight drama. I mean, I'm basically writing HBO style drama in a comic book, and people are like, why would you write a drama on a comic? Comics are supposed to be big, larger than life, and whatever. And I agree with that too. I enjoy. I like superhero books as much as the next guy, but I think you can tell stories, and just like you can, just like Orange Cassidy exists in wrestling, and it works. You know what I mean? Like you can use the media to tell any kind of story you want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you had indie books were underground, but there was so much stuff like Ghost World, any Harvey Pekar stuff. There was Mouse, which is fantastic.
But most of comics has always been genre. Like it's always been at least crime, sci-fi, whatever. I don't know. I don't know how many other people are just doing like a straight drama. There's not a lot of it out there.
No, but romance comics were big in the 40s or some around then.
Right.
I mean, there's still Archie. I mean, who doesn't love Riverdale, the Riverdale gang?
It's very popular.
It is, especially with that TV show now.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
So. So there's always the possibility of this stuff. Unfortunately, most people don't pick up on it because in America we just associate, big superhero-y genre stuff.
But also I blame the industry. I mean, Marvel doesn't want you to. Marvel and DC have such market share. They don't want you to think about other comics because they're going to buy other comics. You know what I mean? So it behooves them to frame it as a superhero discussion. And WWE doesn't want to think about wrestling outside of WWE. Every once in a while they kind of want to, and they want to bite off some guy's Indian name. If they want to get credit for it, bring him in. AJ Styles or whatever, bring him in and talk about his experience. But not in a way that tries to encourage you to go watch it. It's just like, hey, this guy's something. You need to respect him, even though you've never seen him before.
He did really well in the minor leagues, but now he's in the majors.
Exactly. And that's the game. You know what I mean? Like when you have forces like that have so much control over the aesthetic, like getting people to change is difficult.
Definitely. So, how did you find your artist to get moving on it then?
So initially, I found my artist through digital webbing, and I used Randy Valiente for the first book, and then I was taking that book around and shopping around, and then I met Kel, who's a professional wrestler from New Zealand, who's also a comic book artist, and now he draws my interiors. He had come to my table and he was like, "Oh, this looks awesome." He's like, "I'm a wrestler." And I was like, "Oh, really?" He pulled out his mask out of his bag and put it on, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." You know what I mean? He's like, "I'm also an artist." And I was like, "Oh, he's good." And it's a great collaboration because obviously he knows what I'm talking about. Randy wasn't a big wrestling fan, so I have to find YouTube clips of everything that I need, and Mikkel understands little things. Like wrestlers will look at my book and be like, "Oh, who drew this?" Because like the hand placement is correct, and like there's certain things that are in that book that only somebody that is an actual practitioner in the craft would understand. That Mikkel just draws because that's that's the way that it is. But people respect that. It always cracks me up when somebody flips the book. Who drew this? Because it's like, how are you going to get his hand placement right? It makes me laugh. But, so everything's super authentic. And obviously Jerry Lawler does our covers. So, I mean, outside of Jill Thompson, who kind of has a toe in the wrestling business herself, designing gear for people and stuff.
Oh, cool.
It's all, all the art's done by actual wrestlers, which I couldn't love more.
So I have to ask, how did you get the King to do your covers?
So it's a crazy story. I did my first. I did a preview book, and I did my first issue, and it was going to come out in previews. And I took a week off from work at every comic store in 3 states: New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. I mean, I started one day in Manhattan, like from the tip of Manhattan, I walked up and went to all the different comic stores. I talked to everybody. I gave them books, preview books. I was like, everybody I talked to had multiple people that they knew of that were wrestling fans. But still nobody was going to own a book because it's independent. And I was like, how am I going to get people to see what I have to offer if they won't even look at it? I had a guy in my own town runs a store in my own town. He said, I don't think anybody's going to buy this. And one of his clerks brought one out of my bag for me right in front of him, and he still wouldn't stock it. I mean, and that's partly what's difficult about comics is just that so many people are superhero fans. They don't even understand or want to knowledge other genres. So I knew I needed something different, something to kind of set me apart, something to get people's attention, and then I got thinking one day, man, Jerry Lawler's artist. I'm like, I wonder if he can do a cover for me. So I found his website. I sent him an email, cold. I have no idea. He has no idea who I am. Never met him before in my life. And I emailed his website, which I forgot I did after I did it because it was such a ridiculous long shot. And maybe 2 weeks later, Jerry gave me an email back. Hey, I sent you some books, and I'll look at what you're doing. So, it's in Memphis, probably him, maybe he's webmaster, I don't know. So I send him the books, and maybe a week later I get a phone call. I mean, honestly, his voice is so distinctive. I mean, if it wasn't that he didn't have his distinctive voice, I never would believe it was him. But it was. It was just like, hey, this is Jerry Lawler. I was like, really? I mean, I remember I was at work. It was like 8 o'clock at night. I worked at night, and it was Jerry Lawler and talking to me on the phone, and he was like, I'll totally cover for you. And I was like, all right. I'm like, what do you want for it? How much you want to pay? No, I'll just do it. Don't worry about it. He's like, I love to do art, and everybody asks me to wrestle, nobody ever asks me to do art. So, and it's funny because Jerry actually got into wrestling from his art.
Oh,
As a
really?
kid, he drew wrestlers and he sent them into the TV station in Memphis, and they put him on TV. And then they hired him to be like almost like a court reporter, where he would draw pictures, and they would show them like what happened on televised events. They'd be like, so and so fought so and so, and they'd show a picture of Jerry drawn of it. So, and then from that, he met people, and he was able to get trained, and then he became like super famous. And he never really got to go back to his art. So, me being the first person to ask him to do art, he was into it, and so he painted a cover for me, and it was super cool because like I got to watch him do it. He did it like here, like he'd come up. One of the other things about Jerry is he's a world champion wrestler. He's an amazing artist, but he doesn't do anything better than procrastinate. So I was like, Jerry, I just covered. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, just come to the show. And he's like, I'll work on that. I'll bang it right out. And I'm like, you understand? Like a whole cover. No, don't worry about it. And so he went and wrestled in Newburgh, New York, and he went to his hotel room. I went with him, and he just sat down and took out his art stuff and started working. Like he had it drawn out, but he was painting a cover right in front of me. And like half the guys on the roster were like, Samoa Joe was there, he was wrestling on the show, and he came in and we were just sitting on the bed, like marking out, this is so cool. And I watched him paint the whole cover, and that's how it went. And I was like, hey, you want to do Comic Cons? Yeah, I'd love to do Comic Cons. And we started doing conventions, and we started doing covers, and I don't know, everybody has different experiences with people, and everybody has different perceptions of people based on their sort of, what their televised persona is. And a lot of ways, Jerry's very much what you'd expect based on that, but also like just the nicest, most generous guy. Like he's done so much for me and asks for nothing most of the time. Like I have to secretly try to pay for dinner when we go out to dinner, because he's that guy. Like, he wants to buy you dinner. He wants to, he's just a nice. He's a real nice. He's a regular guy. He doesn't think of himself as famous. He thinks of himself as like a regular guy that stuff happens to. And for my mind, I think he's easily one of the greatest professional wrestlers in the history of the world. Like he sold out the same towns for like 11 years. And I mean, to me, the level of creativity and the overness or whatever, that's not something that a lot of people do. You know what I mean? Like Ric Flair people sold out. He was going month to month. I mean, he was going around the country. I mean, Jerry was in the same 5-city loop every week. And people still sold out to see him, fight the latest bad guy and stuff. And I think that's it's fantastic. Like I watched him wrestle this week. He wrestled in Connecticut. He's wrestling. And I love watching him wrestle because even now, at the age of, obviously he's very limited. He's very limited. He's limited physically what he can do. But he does so many little things. And you use so many guys now, so many guys, or even guys that are on television. Like they forget some of the finer points because they're more spot oriented, or they're worried about getting in a spot and stuff. And Jerry does so much with so little. I love to watch it. I love to watch him wrestle. And even now, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I really have only watched him wrestle in the WWE and the footage of him versus Andy Kaufman personally. Mm-hmm. But he's definitely a great wrestler.
But they did everything first. Like most of ECW was ripped from Memphis. And Paul Heyman was the first to admit that. He had guys wrestle as he had pop culture concepts. You know what I mean? He had Adam West on his show as Batman. He had guys wrestle as werewolves, and you know what I mean? The Shawn Michaels Playgirl cover is actually a centerfold he did in the 70s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When he had the crown in front of his junk. But he did everything first. I think it's crazy to me. I think he's one of the most creative minds ever in the history of wrestling. He'll never get credit for it because obviously history is written by the winners and all of that. So
yeah,
it's a weird thing. But
it's also
he inspired everything.
He was also regional when then it just was copied by national. So people, on the West Coast never saw any Memphis wrestling. ever.
Sure.
And now they
But
see.
even like you said, they took so many concepts from Memphis. And at that time it was so different because WWE was a cartoon.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he's also one of the quickest whips like I've ever heard. You just listen to him on the mic, and it's just like, how does it?
And he's like that life too.
Yeah,
I mean, he's super fun. Like just to be out and hanging around with him and stuff. Like it's my favorite thing to do. Like so he's and it's weird because you wouldn't expect this, but he's a big art nerd. And we go to I've been to more art museums with Jerry Waller than any other person. And we go to art museums and like that. Like we went to Stockton Con in Stockton, California. One of the benefits was they have this art museum there, and they let all the guests go. And it's also the largest collection of J.C. Linebacker, who used to do the post before Rockwell. He was sort of Rockwell's mentor. And we do these on Rockwell covers for books, and Jerry's a big Rockwell fan. We've been to the museum a bunch of times, and we got together and we spent hours there. Like they let us go down into the catacombs and like pull out all these old, they were pulling out all these old sketches and like paintings and like stuff that like people never get to see. It was awesome. We were super into it. You know what I mean? And it's funny because that's a side that people wouldn't see from him. But he's super into art, and it's neat.
Yeah, and it definitely shows in his art. Like that was the vibe I get from the covers, that it's very Rockwell inspired. And I've seen other art from him before, where I've seen him do like paintings of himself and things like that. But the fact that he chose this particular style and knew how to work it and everything just really showed a love for it and a familiarity with it.
And he's got such a weird, not weird, but like a wide variety of interests. Like he really likes like Frank Frazetta, and he loves the Rat Faint Bear, like that style of art. And he really likes Patrick Nagel. Like it's really cool just to see. I don't know, just to see this guy from Memphis who throws fire at people and wrestles for a living. He starts talking, we're at a museum, we're like close up in paintings, like looking at brushstrokes and stuff. And I don't know, it's one of the funnest things that I get to do. You know what I mean? It's such a weird thing because it's with somebody that I grew up watching on television. Now he's one of my best friends, and it's such a. I just talked to him a couple hours ago, and it's such a weird thing. You know what I mean? And of all the things that I've got to do, like I just want to make a cool wrestling comic. Now I'm friends with people like. Hurricane is one of my favorite wrestlers. I saw him this weekend. He's one of my best friends too. And it's crazy to think like these people accept me as an equal, and they like because they like what I do. Like sort of mutual respect. But then we get along, and we're friends. Like it's as a kid who grew up watching wrestling, like it's like a total dream come true.
Oh, I know, and they all seem to want to work with you, because now they're doing backups for Headlocked. They're co-writing WWE comics with you. And it's just like
I've been lucky in a lot of ways. Everybody kind of looks out for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like everybody's always treated me like one of the boys. Like like I've been in locker rooms and people invited me in locker rooms, and no one's ever been like, why is that guy in here? It's cool. I've been backstage at Raw, backstage and like in locker rooms, at indie shows and stuff. And everybody just treats me like one of the boys, which is really to me like the highest compliment, because I think everybody appreciates the story that I'm telling and the sort of authenticity of it, and that treating it with respect and being serious about it. And
yeah,
I don't know. It's cool.
That's what I was about to say. That you're very respectful of it. You're kind of, sort of like showing how like the behind the scenes kind of works. Like obviously it's not the full kayfabe and everything, but it's kind of that vibe, like the way it looks from an outside. Yeah.
Like the sort of negative aspects of the business will drive the story. And most everybody that's in wrestling will tell you, like I love wrestling. I would wrestle for free. Like they pay me for the bullshit. And that's so I mean that's kind of how my story goes. We're always respectful of the craft and the art form and whatnot. And then some of the nonsense that also happens. That sort of drives the story forward, but that's not what most people think of. Guys that wrestle, it's not what they think of as wrestling. You know what I mean? To them, it's being in the ring and, calling the match. And there's a real art form. Take it. Even if they don't think of it that way, they think of it that way. It's hard to explain. Like, they're not walking around, like Boss Mahoney isn't walking around talking about, art and whatever, but like, he understands it on a visceral level. What he's doing is art. And like, they're respectful of it as such.
Yeah, and it has a very respectful tone to how they learn to wrestle as well. Because a lot of the main push of the story is that the main character is learning to wrestle, trying to become one of the boys, and he's going through his own trials and tribulations. As there was an accident in the ring early on that kind of pushes his story forward, and it's kind of pushing drama while also trying to give a feel of what it's like to be behind the scenes of wrestling.
As he learns he's learning the craft of wrestling, he's also sort of coming of age at the same time in an environment that has no rules and no structure, and kind of what that's like when you put like a very young immature kid into this sort of wild west environment, and how he's gonna grow, how he's gonna learn, and who's teaching him things, and it's I think a lot of sort of fascinating about how we build our personalities as people. Like you pull from people who are influential to you. And there's things that I've pulled from people who had a very time-wise had a very small overlap with me, but had a big impact on who I became then. And I always find that fascinating. Like what you choose to. What you choose, the blocks you choose to build your identity with. And that's part of his journey as well. And a lot of what he's learning in the ring sort of ties into what he's also learning in terms of his coming of age.
Nice. And there's also the whole story of people coming after wrestling, like, it's fake, it's awful, let's try and break it down.
Yeah, there's a Phil Mushnick type person. And, I wanted it to be accessible for everybody. So that's why we started it from day zero. I wanted somebody who's never watched wrestling before. Because wrestling's a very polarizing thing. People instantly have an opinion on wrestling, whether they've ever watched it or not. Which I find amazing. Like, yeah, that sucks, that's fake, or whatever, never watched it. No. So I wanted to sort of hide the medicine in the food, so to speak. So I wanted to tell an entertaining sort of dramatic story that, I mean, how many people watch Rocky that watch boxing on the reg? You know what I mean? Like, not many, obviously. Rocky's far more popular than boxing is, like, in general. So I wanted to be able to tell an interesting story that's that anybody can follow, that would also, you can start the story, and I've had a ton of people buy the book who've never watched wrestling come back and be like, wow, I have such a different opinion about wrestling now, and I feel like I've converted some people, which was always kind of my intention, honestly, was for people to see wrestling through my eyes. It's a little more out there now where people can talk about the art form and stuff. I mean, back when I started Headlocked, it wasn't something that was a regular discussion, and I want people to try to sort of low-key trick some soccer moms into falling in love with fake fighting.
It's a good plan. And you kind of started towards the end of the down period too. So your story built up as wrestling itself built up again.
And that's been cool because a lot of the guys that were coming up on the indies, are now in WWE, and friends with all these guys, and they've always been good to me and helped me out. And it's been really cool. Like all these guys are. It's wrestling's real for me again on some level, just because like I know so many people, and I know obviously know the toll that it takes. So like Christopher Daniels is somebody that I consider a friend. Christopher Daniels is older, for a wrestler, it still takes incredible risks in the ring. And like it's hard for me to watch him wrestle like a ladder match. And I'm sure he's professional, pro. He's always going to be safe. I mean, anything can happen. You know what I mean? And it always makes me nervous to watch him wrestle because like I know him now as a human. I care for his well-being, and that makes wrestling real for me. Like I want my friends to win belts because I know that's better for their career. not because it makes them the toughest guy in the room, but because I know they're going to make more money, and it's a higher profile, better for their families. So like it's weird, you know what I mean? Because you go through this sort of phase where younger wrestling's real, and it's less real, and now it's totally real for me in a lot of ways, and that's kind of fun too.
Oh yeah, I totally understand that. It's always more visceral if you're kind of a part of it, and you kind of have more of a relationship to it.
I remember watching one of I was at a Ring of Honor show years ago, and I turns out I was sitting next to Briscoe's parents.
Oh, nice.
I think Papa Briscoe eventually became like an on-screen character, but this was before that. You know, and he was super pumped up, he's cheering and yelling for his boys, and the mom has just got her hands over her eyes, you know, barely watching it. And it's interesting, you know, just to see the different ways that people experience wrestling. You know, I always thought of wrestling as like sort of like the physical equivalent of jazz music. Like I love going to jazz concerts and listening to people play jazz. Since recorded music, you know, like it loses something in the recording. It's such a visceral live thing. That's what I feel about wrestling. Live wrestling is so awesome. And as much as TV wrestling is such a big part of its growth, I feel like it loses something. You know, it loses a bit of its soul coming through the screen. And so that's why I love to still go to every indie show that I can, and you know, the smaller arenas, and get the smack at hand and the sweat and the ring moving and all that stuff. It's just so much more immersive.
Well, there's also, you know, that energy of being in the crowd, like witnessing it with, you know, 1,000 people or however many are in the audience. And I think that also adds to it. It's like seeing a concert versus listening to an album.
Crowds make everything. And I wish people understood how much their involvement makes a match. Like I saw the best live experience I've ever had as a wrestling fan, my entire 30-some years of wrestling fan, was Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi in the New York Hotel. And there's 1,500 people in a hotel ballroom, and I would put those people like voice for voice ahead of any other crowd. I've been like a dozen WrestleManias. Those, I mean, that place, like my ears hurt when I left there. Everybody was losing their mind. The wrestlers were on the balcony. They were watching the show. They were losing their mind. Like it was nuts. It was such a crazy environment. You know what I mean? But a great crowd can make a bad match very good, and a bad crowd can make an excellent match horrible. And then it's you know, I wish people would sort of embrace that part of it. You know, and I get it can be exhausting sometimes, especially the length that shows run. But I mean, the crowd really has a part to play in in the process.
Oh yeah, but when you're going to a 7-hour WWE pay-per-view,
wrestling should never be more than 3 hours.
Yeah,
it really should. 3 hours and a half hour intermission, 2.5 hours and a half hour intermission. Like that. I mean, WrestleMania is on God. I mean, I saw WrestleMania one year. I was a guest of 2K Sports, and I watched it in a luxury box. It was fully catered and entirely free. It was free food. It was free drinks, and it was too long for me. I mean. Like I'm a man that loves wrestling so much. I read a comic about it, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I ended up deciding to watch it at home, but I did go to SummerSlam last summer, and it was the same thing where, you know, it's literally like doors opened at 5, so, you know, you go kind of early because you want to catch the early matches, and then it ran till midnight, and you're just like, you know, this is a lot, and I have to go to work tomorrow.
No, it is. I think that I don't know. I definitely think WWE can benefit from more focused storytelling all the way around. I think that you know it's interesting because you know obviously experienced wrestlers can call a match in the ring without having to plan it out. You just get out there and if you follow the crowd, let the crowd sort of lead you and you build a match. But I don't necessarily think TV works that way, and that's how they do it. I mean, they sort of write it every week, and I don't know. I think they need more focused storytelling. Like I still remember this day the feud between Miz and Balls Mahoney on WWE's version of ECW. Like it resonated with me, and they never finished it, which is insane. But whatever. But it was a memorable thing to me, and it's very hard now to remember. Because I mean, because there's so much stuff, but also just the way the guys trade wings and like things don't necessarily flow. Like, oh yeah, every champion is going to lose on TV now. Like that's the thing. Like the champion gets pinned in a non-title match, and I I think that they just need to do some more focused storytelling. Like people give Vince Russo crap, and he's earned all of it. But when he was in charge of WWE, everybody had a story. Every person on that show had a storyline, from the top tippy top guy to the bottom guy. Like there was nobody that was just there. Like you might be in an enhancement match, but you also have this little personal issue with this other guy lower on the card. Just people stuff to do and helps them develop personality and stuff. And now there's just, it feels like they pay a lot of attention to the top two or three matches on the show, and the two or three superstars, and then everybody else is just kind of there.
Yeah,
doing some stuff.
Yeah, Vince Russo was really good at following the through lines of individual characters. Unfortunately, it was long-term storytelling he sucked at, and was very much going for that car crash television. And if he had somebody to balance that, then it would have,
And I think when he did, I mean, they had some success. I mean, I'm not saying the Attitude Era holds up, because it really doesn't in a lot of ways. But, it's funny, too, because it's, I mean, at the time, everybody loved it, So it's, I mean, contextually, in its time, it was the right thing for the right time. Maybe that's, it's not the right thing for now, but it's definitely interesting.
It is, and it'll be interesting to see where wrestling goes from here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, back to the book. See, there's 3 volumes out right now.
Yes.
And a 4th was kickstarted.
Yes.
A little while ago.
It's it's been too long.
But what was the Kickstarter experience like?
Kickstarter is super. I mean, that was our 4th one. It's super nerve-wracking. It doesn't matter. Like, I mean, we were at the point now. Like, we would hit our goal, in a day or two. Because we have a fan base, but it's still just, you just always want it to be as big as it can be. You want people to be excited about your stuff. You want people to get into it, and then it's just the way Kickstarter works. They say you get 30% at the beginning, you get 30% at the end, and then the entire middle you get 30%. So it's a flurry of activity at the beginning, and then it's just this lull in the middle. You get a couple of pledges every day because people are going to wait, and whatever. And it's agonizing. And then people don't pledge on the weekends because people have better things to do with their life. And in your head, you still want people to pledge those days, and it's just agonizing. Like the first one, I feel like I'm better at it now, but like the first one I gained like 20 pounds of stress weight because I just eat. I just refresh my phone like every 5 minutes, and it's nerve-wracking. But if it wasn't Kickstarter, we wouldn't be able to do what we do because even now, like the success that we've had, the number of people we've had involved, like I don't even exist in comics to a certain extent because we built the book outside of comics. Any other short comic apparatus, like I sold my book out of my backpack at wrestling shows, and we started going to Comic-Con and sort of building the audience that way, and then Kickstarter was what made it go for us. The direct market wasn't really wasn't really feasible. When I have guys telling me like, hey, yeah, I've got 20 wrestling fans in my store, but I'm not going to buy your book because I don't carry indies. Like, what do you do with that? So I knew there was an audience. I just had to go find the audience. Too many people, I think, just sort of put their stuff out into the world and expect people to find it. But I think in this day and age, you're competing with everything. Cat videos on the internet, competing with the WWE network. There's so much entertainment. Competing with Fortnite. So you gotta go out and find your audience. And so that's what I try to do as much as possible. Is go out and drag it kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I picked up. I started with the 2nd volume, but I picked that up at a convention, dug it, ended up backing the Kickstarter and buying all the back issues that way. So, I'm a fan. I enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to this fourth volume finally coming.
Yeah, it's Mikhail's had a whole bunch of issues. It's the part of collaboration is difficult, and then Kenny Omega did a story, and Cody Rhodes did a story, and they agreed to do it, and then obviously the Bullet Club stuff blew up, and then they ran all in and started their own company. So like chasing these guys down is difficult. You know what I mean? So I've got 5 wrestlers I have to chase down. Like I never would have guessed the easiest person to get the story out of was Ric Flair. But like I got 5 wrestlers to chase down with 5 different creative teams, and then my creative team, and then Jerry and colorist, and it's tough. And then I was working 70 hours a week at my regular job, trying to hit conventions on the weekend, and we do these art prints and managing that, and I got a Caribbean series coming out. Probably by the end of the year, another sort of wrestling themed creative comic book series, and some better comics, and it's crazy. I don't sleep a lot. That's the only way it works. So
yeah, well, that's the problem. If you're not like with one of the big 5 or 6 companies, it becomes tough to even get traction in the market.
And even some of them are having, even some of them struggle. So it's but the market's there, and that's the thing. Like comics failed itself. I mean, I guess it did because Marvel and DC like it the way it works. Because it works and it benefits them, and they got the market share. But on some level, the art form failed itself, I guess, or the business failed the art form. So I mean, because there's lots of people that sell a lot of books. They just don't sell them in comic book stores, which is crazy. You know what I mean? They're called comic book stores. But it's also weird too, because in this day and age, people don't go to specialty shops for anything. So it's weird that that's how we still do business. It's weird that you have to pay 3 months in advance for something. In the era of one click. There's a lot of outmoded things that comics needs to address to take advantage of stuff. And they sort of fight technology, and fight digital, and they got to do a better job of getting stuff into people's hands in a more of an impulse buy.
Yeah,
like I don't know, like why can't Marvel? I don't know. Like if I was Marvel Comics, like I would have stands. I mean, if I was a comic book store, I'd have stands set up at the theaters, and I would have movie tie-in books or whatever. I mean, there's. I just feel like there's so many things that you can take advantage of. And I mean, obviously, movie studios don't care small potatoes for them, but you would think that the industry would want to take advantage of that or somehow negotiate, some way to help the comics, but there's almost no sort of reciprocation on the other end. They'll throw thank you at the bottom of the. They'll throw thank you at the bottom of the movie in the credits, at some point. But they got to do better.
Well, part of it is some of those retailers who own the comic book stores try to hamstring the publishers because they see it as competition. Oh, you're going to sell digital. Well, that's cutting into my profits. Oh, you're going to sell at the movie theater. That cuts into my profits. And then they complain, and then Marvel's like, well, what do we do? DC's like, well, we still want to have your business, so we don't want to screw you over. And then
they shouldn't have fought it. You know what I mean? Like, what if they had done, what if digital, like if you bought a physical copy, you got a free digital copy, or if you buy the digital copy, you get something different that you don't get in the physical copy.
Well, they did the codes. They did the codes in the printed versions, at least for a long time. I don't know if they still do, where you get a free digital copy.
But I mean, something to encourage people to buy them separately or whatever. Just, I feel like there's everybody just tried to fight progress.
Yeah.
And they get hurt for a long time. And thankfully, like I said, things like Kickstarter exist, so people like me who do unconventional stuff can, get it to their audience. Because I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think if I just put it on my website, it was like, hey, order this. Like, I don't know if I would generate enough sales. Because people will just be like, oh, I'll get you at the next convention or whatever. But there's an urgency to Kickstarter that sort of gets people going. And I don't know. I mean, you think that maybe somehow people could get involved in that, or that could somehow be a model for. I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be. We can't keep doing things the way we've always done them because obviously that ain't working. I mean, I know that comics is growing, sales is growing. They need to figure something out.
And even the market for them is growing because they're finally becoming very inclusive in ways they haven't been before. To like women, minorities, things like that. I mean, I really don't want to go into it, but there is also sort of that gatekeeper mentality among, young males, even some older ones too, who are trying to kind of hamstring these people out of the fandom. And it's unfortunate.
It is absolutely unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there are creators that play into it because they know that, they're getting money off of that. They're trying to sell some snake oil to these guys. And I just feel like everything doesn't have to be for you. Like there's so much entertainment. There's so many comic books. There's so many things. But the problem is we've had a reliance on the same 40 or 50 characters for 70 years. And they mean different things to different people. If you grew up in the 60s, Batman is Adam West for you. For some people, it's Michael Keaton. For some people, it's Christian Bale. You know what I mean? And they're all different presentations of Batman. So everybody wants their version, and I think that makes it hard to. It makes it hard because comics outside of like say Deadpool and Harley Quinn. I mean, I don't know if any new characters, Cable, I guess now, have any new characters that really sort of hit the modern characters that have hit the mainstream in that way. People still think of just the big seven Justice League guys and the Avengers, whatever. The guys that have been around forever. But it's just everybody has a sense of ownership. They've been different things to everybody. So it's definitely difficult. I just wish that people would realize that you can do different things, and not every book is going to be for you.
Yeah, and I mean, those characters you just cited are all at least 20 years old.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, and that's the hard. I mean, especially I think just Hollywood, where things get pushed. You know what I mean? Nothing gets pushed without some kind of brand awareness. So it's even harder to get a brand new character going. And I mean, comics is super risk averse, and mainstream media is super risk averse. I still to this day have no idea how Into the Spider-Verse got made. Like, it's amazing. I love it.
I love that movie.
It filled my heart with such joy to watch that movie, and still does to this. Just that they used designs from the comics and stuff, and just the way it was done. But like it blows my mind that movie got made. Like how that got made, how somebody approved that, because it's so different.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think every fan is going through it. Obviously, Star Wars is going through it right now. It's everybody's got that ownership stuff.
I know, and not all of that ownership is good.
No. And it's like we were talking. When wrestling in the early 2000s, like I got burned out. Like I was just like, oh, this just isn't doing it for me. And I found Ring of Honor, and I fell in love with wrestling again, and that became my thing. There were times where WWE got good, and I was into it. There's times that other things. I mean, there's a time that Progress was my favorite thing, and it's still probably the best overall produced thing. But like. I feel like there's too much entertainment in the world to narrow yourself to something, or to have something make you miserable. You just gotta find what you like, and if something, sometimes something is just not for you anymore, or sometimes the thing you love doesn't love you back. You gotta find something that will, and it's a hard lesson for people to learn, and it's frustrating. I think everybody gets a fan. I remember David Lindelof couldn't understand why people were so mad about Lost. And then I remember he went to the movies. I don't remember what movie it was. He got angry about the movie. He was like, oh, I get it now. I kind of understand now why people people got angry at Lost because I got angry about this thing, and I'm telling people not to look about it. So
Yeah.
it's tough. I mean, it's great. It's great when everybody can be happy. I think by and large, I think for such a polarizing, the comics are so polarizing. The Marvel movies are generally, super well received outside of people crying about Captain Marvel. But I mean, there's so much joy there from those characters and from what was done, and that's a real heartening thing. It makes me happy to see people enjoying those worlds.
Yeah, well, Captain Marvel fell into that whole, Comicsgate thing again, but
Understood.
Yeah, but look at Endgame, where people are coming out crying from a 3-hour movie. It's making over $1 billion its opening weekend. So it shows that people want to be entertained. They want to love these characters. They want to love their entertainment, and it's just finding what they love.
And it frustrates me when you watch something that's sort of hacked out. I used to like Jurassic Park movies and stuff. I saw the recent Jurassic Park movie, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that Chris Pratt beat up like 100 guys with a bumbling dinosaur. Like, I thought that was dumb. And I mean, that's not something to be realistic to kids. Like, I don't know how, I was like, yeah, all right, maybe I don't need to watch Jurassic Park anymore, I'll watch something else. But I like Pixar, like people complain, people who watch wrestling complain about it being PG, but like Pixar, everybody loves Pixar movies. And Pixar finds a way to get people invested in their characters, and it's cartoon. But kids love them, adults love them, whatever. It's all PG. There's no rated R Pixar movies, and people are into it. So you can tell stories like that and get people invested. Like, there doesn't have to be a boo hanging out or whatever. And I mean, hey, I'm not against that either. But I'm just like people that think that you can't tell. That you can't tell simple stories that people love. It doesn't. Things can be good. Like nothing ever has to suck. And that does bother me. People make stuff that is very clearly hacked out.
Well, I mean, there's always the first 10 minutes of Up.
Yeah, seriously.
Is one of the best love stories I've ever seen.
Right. It's gut-wrenching. You know what I mean? It's a cartoon. I mean, it's. I don't know. Like I feel like there's nothing ever has an excuse to suck. Like if it's half-assed. And that's the thing. Like it's fine to make a storytelling choice that people don't agree with. Like it's another thing where you can just tell like people are phoning in it.
Yeah, and it's okay to not make it for all audience. It's for this audience. Hey, because not everything's for everybody. I'm not into teen dramas anymore. I'm not a teenager. That's fine. I don't have to watch them. And I can appreciate. I hate reality TV shit. That's me, but I don't hold it against anybody who enjoys it. My girlfriend.
You can watch everything.
Yeah, my girlfriend wants to watch Kardashians. She can do it without me. That's fine. We'll watch it separate.
But nobody's gonna be happy when you're sitting there sort of pooping on the other person's form of entertainment.
Yeah, but alternatively, we try. I got her somewhat into wrestling. She's really enjoying the women's revolution. She loves Charlotte. She loves Becky. So Ronda helped get her into it because she knew Ronda from MMA. So it's just like the fact that you can find bits and pieces, even if you don't love the entire product. You like the women's wrestling? Watch the women's wrestling. You like the luchas? Watch luchas.
On a side note, man, I really felt bad for Ronda. Like for the level of experience she had and the stages she was put on, I think she did pretty well. And she brought a ton of people to there. I mean, she was probably, I don't know if they get that Fox deal without her. And then, nobody would cut that girl a break. And it's unfortunate because she was always wrestling. She was going to PWG shows back in the day. She would go to Nation shows. She was a real fan.
I don't doubt it.
I think that they probably lost a little bit in the trail. I don't think she needed to be like that. I think if they had brought her in how she finished, I think it would have been better. But she still wasn't getting any kind of respect. And it's a shame because she really did a lot for that company.
Without a doubt. I also think that they could have held a little bit back before introducing her, just because she was really green when she started, and she just didn't know the rhythm of wrestling. She knew how to
But
fight.
I also think that made it fun. To me, it made it interesting because she's different. Like, she talked when she did her promo. She would talk like a sports person.
Oh yeah, that was
And
great.
it was different, and it made sense for her character. And I liked it. Like I thought it was I thought it really, and I know it wasn't the intent, but it, I don't know. I think it was just something different.
No,
And it's funny too, because I know like Nia Jax is somebody else that people take a lot of crap to. Like I think Ronda and Nia had amazing chemistry, and I really enjoyed watching them wrestle.
I did too. She was just not familiar with wrestling. She just was a little green when she started. That was
Absolutely. But I mean, also,
but she picked it up really quick, and
absolutely,
she earned that main event spot.
I mean, she sold some tickets.
Definitely, and that's what it's all about. And I hope she comes back to wrestling soon. I know she's taking a little time off, but we'll see what happens.
Got a singles match.
Yeah,
and Charlotte got a singles match again too.
Yeah,
I think the one person who benefited the most out of that series was Charlotte. Like she really came to her own as a character in a way that I don't know she had, and I don't know. Like I think that she really grew a lot. She's awesome, super. Like she gets it and whatever. It's but I think she really grew a lot out of that, and it makes me happy to see.
Yeah, no, she definitely did, and I think as a byproduct, Becky did as well, because
Becky was up on her own. Becky was always like, and she's a super nice person. I don't know Charlotte personally. Becky, I think Becky's like the sweetest, such a nice, happy person, and couldn't be happier for her to. One of my artist friends made an art print of her, and she brought it to her, and she said, "Oh, I hope you get rich on it." Like, and she hugged her, and just such a nice, gracious person, and I don't know, like everybody that meets her feels that way about her. So it's cool that good things are happening to a good person.
Yeah, but I think the man character wouldn't have happened if Charlotte didn't up her game going against Ronda.
Agreed.
And I think that's kind of where my thinking was on that.
Yeah.
But I love but it's gotten me loving the product again. So, I mean, I restarted watching wrestling about a year and a half ago, and it was great to be able to watch all of this kind of grow.
Yeah, and sometimes I think you just gotta. Sometimes I mean it can become somewhat repetitive. You know what I mean? Like every tag team match still throws a hot tag. You know what I mean? You know it's coming, and you know what I mean. Sometimes you just gotta walk away a little bit, and then it's fresh again. It's not saying walk away, just maybe scale it back for a little bit, and then you come back and it's all right, I'm there again. But
and the show can be a little predictable, as in, all right, now I know that this is when the promo's going to be. This is when they're going to do the commercial break in the middle of the match, and that.
No, I mean that definitely needs some work. I'm not gonna lie, but it definitely needs some structural work. And I don't think it's the fault of the talent, and that's unfortunate. I do feel like they have a super talented roster. I just don't necessarily know if they give them a lot to work with. And I think they I don't know. I feel like they should just take the gloves off and just give them microphones and just let them go crazy and let them do. I mean, Becky's far more entertaining on Twitter than she is in any other point. You know what I mean? So she clearly got it in. So, you know what I mean? Like, let her go. Let her do her thing. You know? She's doing it better than they are.
Yeah. No, I'm not a huge fan of the everything must be scripted way of doing things now. Like, that's one thing I don't love about attitude.
It's a bad way to do anything. You know? I mean, like, I don't know. I think when things become too editorially driven. I mean, in comics too, we get into like the events and stuff and whatever. Like, I think it somewhat chokes the life out of the stories. And I think what Marvel did by having the one guy oversee the whole thing, but still letting individual directors sort of have a voice. You know what I mean? Like you have Guardians of the Galaxy be such a weird, different movie. Then all these other movies, they all felt different. Black Panther felt different, even though they kept sort of the same tenets. We're like, this is a Marvel movie, but they all sort of had a little bit of everybody's voice in it. And I don't know. I think that to me, I feel like that's a good way to handle something like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think there's also just that event fatigue where you were literally for a while going event to event to event.
Mm-hmm.
Secret Invasion led into Dark something or other, led into Siege. Oh, Dark Reign. That's the one I was trying to think of.
The Sphere itself was in there at some point. And a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, and it's just like sometimes just give it a rest, because then it becomes even bigger when you do it again, and you know. Otherwise,
I mean, I don't know. Like and it's hard for like now. Comics aren't cheap, and like I don't read a lot of superhero books because it's really hard to just read a book. Like I want to read a character. Like I'll buy like Moon Knight or something because I know like it's probably not going to cross over. It's just one book. It's one story. And, I can read it and enjoy it because that's the way it used to be. You read X-Men and you wouldn't have to read 10 other books, and then eventually you had to buy X-Force or X-Factor and two X-Men books. Avengers now ships twice a month, which is insanity.
Yeah,
but it's craziness.
Yeah, I think we could just keep going forever on wrestling and comics, and it's great. But I think we're gonna kind of take it home now, and we can always pick this up again because this is really great. Like, just especially since you have all this inside knowledge of the wrestling business and the comics business that we can learn from.
But it's super fun. I just looked at the clock and I was like, oh man, it's been an hour and a half. I didn't realize. So,
I know. That's
kind of have fun.
Yeah, that's why I was like, all right, let's wrap up because it's wow. It's we'd probably go for a couple hours, I think.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So, where can they find more of you, and where can they find the Headlocked books?
All of our stuff is Headlocked Comic. It's one word. It's our website. That's where we got books. It's our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, the whole nine yards. So I write it all, so it's all me. So if anyone wants to talk to me or whatever, talk some wrestling, talk some comics, I'm always around.
And they can meet you at upcoming comic book conventions, wrestling conventions.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. I think my next scheduled. So I've been off the road a little bit. I'm trying to get some of this stuff done, pushing some of these projects forward. But I'll be at GalaxyCon in Richmond at the end of May. I'm probably going to do something before that, but I haven't committed to it yet. So I don't want to, in case I don't do it. And Florida SuperCon and San Diego Comic-Con this summer. I'm probably going to do StockCon in California. And then just I'll be popping up at wrestling shows here and there when I can. When there's matches that excite me, and or something's going to draw a big crowd or whatever. So I go to a lot of these wrestling shows, go to Wrestling Pro, go to Beyond Wrestling, Game Changer, lots of stuff on the
Awesome, and they can find all that on your website and on your Twitter, because that's how I see where you're going to be. And I usually catch up with you at New York Comic Con, so I hope I see you there again this year.
Yeah, we're working on some cool stuff. So I don't know exactly when we're gonna have some cool names. We always have cool names, but we should have some good stuff.
Well, last year you had the King, you had Christian, Sting, Lita, and Trish.
So it's a pretty hefty line.
Seriously, that's just an all-star Hall of Fame lineup right there.
We'll definitely have a Hall of Fame lineup again this year. So more on some cool stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to start on some stuff soon. But I gotta get you San Diego first.
I know it seems so far away, but then it just sneaks up on you. So
I know, right? It does.
All right. Well, that's it for this week on Geekodrome. I'm John. You can find me on Twitter at justjohn. Geekodrome is on Twitch, twitch.tv/Geekodrome. Subscribe to us on iTunes and find out what we're doing every week here on Geekodrome. So until then, thanks for joining us, Mike, and we'll see you next time.